Alina pressed her forehead against the airplane window as the city rose beneath her towers of steel and glass, piercing the desert sky, glittering as if the sun itself bent to their command. Her heart thudded with anticipation. This was the moment she had imagined since she first posed in front of a mirror as a teenager in Minsk, whispering promises to herself that one day she would be seen. The heat struck her instantly when she stepped off the plane, but even that seemed like part of the dream. A man in a pressed white shirt held a sign with her name, bowing slightly before leading her toward a sleek black car. The leather interior smelled faintly of roses and expensive polish. "You're Alina?" he asked softly, glancing at her through the mirror. "Yes," she replied, smiling with nerves. He nodded. "You'll see. Dubai is paradise." The car sliced through wide boulevards lined with palms, passing fountains that shot water into the air like choreography. Alina's phone buzzed with a message from her mother back home. "Send me photos. Tell me everything." She typed quickly. "It's beautiful, Mama, more than I dreamed." The agency apartment overlooked the marina, its windows stretching into endless sky. Gifts waited on the glass table. Perfumes in jeweled bottles, designer heels still in their boxes, a gold watch nestled in velvet. A handwritten note rested beside them. "Welcome to your new beginning." For days her schedule swept her into glamour. She posed against dunes as falcons wheeled overhead, walked marble halls beneath chandeliers that scattered light across her face, and laughed with makeup artists who spoke in quick accents. At night, she was driven to restaurants where every plate looked like art. She called home, her voice high with excitement, yet slowly unease seeped in. When she asked to walk alone by the beach, her driver shook his head firmly. Not allowed. When she checked her passport in her luggage, it was gone. "Agency keeps it safe," the driver explained. She tried to brush away the anxiety, telling herself this was how professional contracts worked. Still, each call home grew shorter. "You sound tired," her mother said once. "I'm fine, just busy," Alina murmured, forcing cheer. But she stared at the locked door of her apartment while speaking, the silence on the other side heavier than any voice. One evening, after a shoot beneath the Burj Khalifa's shadow, she overheard two assistants whispering in Arabic. She caught only fragments, but one word repeated, "Rasheed." The way their eyes darted toward her made her stomach twist. Alina set her phone down that night, without calling home at all. She lay in the king-sized bed, watching the city glitter outside her window. For the first time, the lights looked less like stars and more like bars on a cage. Morning arrived with another knock, another schedule, another ride with the silent driver. Somewhere behind the marble walls and golden promises, someone was waiting to meet her. And his name was Rasheed. The invitation arrived not on paper, but through the driver's quiet announcement. "Tonight, Sheikh Rasheed requests your presence." Alina froze, halfway through adjusting the strap of her dress. "Requests?" she repeated. The driver lowered his eyes to the marble floor. "It is not optional." Her chest tightened, but she forced a smile. She had heard his name in whispers since arriving, carried in the currents of conversations that always stopped when she approached. Rasheed, patron, benefactor, untouchable. That evening, the driver led her into a private palace tucked away from the city's neon blaze. Gold gates rose like a fortress, and inside silence pooled in long corridors. A servant guided her into a grand salon, where every surface gleamed: marble floors, velvet curtains, chandeliers shaped like falling stars. He appeared without sound, dressed in white robes that seemed to radiate light. His presence filled the room before he spoke. "Alina," he said, her name curling from his lips, as though he had known it for years. "Welcome." She bowed her head politely, her pulse racing. "Thank you for inviting me." Rasheed's smile was soft, almost tender. "No, my dear. It is not an invitation. It is an introduction. You belong to my house now, as all the most talented stars eventually do." The words unsettled her, but his eyes locked onto hers with a kind of gravity that made protest feel impossible. He gestured to the feast spread across the table, crystal bowls of fruit, silver platters of lamb, delicate cakes glazed in gold leaf. Eat. You must keep your beauty strong. She tasted nothing but the metallic edge of fear. Over dinner he asked questions, though they felt more like inspections. Her age, her family, her dreams. Each answer tightened invisible strings. When she spoke of her mother, his smile grew faintly amused. You will not need her anymore. The agency is your family now. Her phone, left in her bag at the entrance, never reached her hand again that night. Hours passed in a haze of conversation and controlled laughter. When she rose to excuse herself, Rasheed stepped closer, brushing his hand against her hair with the intimacy of ownership. Remember, he whispered, freedom is an illusion. I give you everything you need. In return, you will give me everything I ask. The car ride back to her apartment felt like the return from a dream that had soured. The city still glittered outside the window, but it seemed further away, unreachable. The following weeks brought changes. Her driver never left her side, waiting outside dressing rooms, outside bathrooms, outside every door. Her schedule bent around private dinners arranged at Rasheed's command. Her passport was confirmed missing, her questions brushed away with empty reassurances. One night she tried to speak to a fellow model about it, but the woman shook her head sharply, eyes darting toward the driver, waiting in the corner. Do not talk here, she whispered. Alina's world was shrinking, luxury closing around her like a gilded trap. And then, one afternoon, during a photo shoot by the sea, a new face appeared, a woman with fierce eyes and a laugh that carried defiance in it. Her name was Zara. The first time Alina saw Zara, the woman was standing ankle-deep in the surf, refusing to pose as the photographer barked instructions. Her dark hair whipped in the sea wind, and instead of compliance, her lips curved into a smirk. Do it yourself, Zara muttered in French, tossing the silk scarf back at the assistant. The crew fell into uneasy silence. Alina's eyes widened. No one ever defied the agency. Later, in the shade of the tent, Zara noticed her staring. Don't look so shocked, she said, lighting a cigarette with steady fingers. They can't fire me, I've already paid the price. Alina frowned. What do you mean? Zara blew smoke toward the waves, her voice dropping. 3 years. That's how long I've been here. They promised contracts, runways, magazines. Instead, her words trailed off, but the shadow in her gaze finished the sentence. That evening, when the others drifted away, Zara lingered beside Alina. You're new, still shining. That won't last. Alina hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. You make it sound like prison. Zara's laugh was low, bitter. Prison has rules. Here, rules change whenever Rasheed decides. The name struck Alina like a jolt. She remembered his hand on her hair, the softness of his whisper that had felt more like a chain. She lowered her eyes. You know him too? Zara leaned closer. Everyone knows him, and those who don't obey disappear. Over the following weeks they found stolen moments together, in dressing rooms, in corners of chauffeured cars, behind curtains, at endless galas. Their voices were hushed, carrying fragments of confessions. He took my passport, Alina whispered once. He took mine the day I arrived, Zara replied. Alina's voice trembled. I thought maybe it was just me. Zara touched her hand briefly, fiercely. No, it's all of us. But no one speaks because fear is the only language here. The bond between them grew into a fragile lifeline. They began to whisper of escape, fantasies of slipping past the guards, of bribing a flight attendant, of running until the desert turned into another country. For Alina, it was hope. For Zara, it was defiance. One night, Zara pressed a small photograph into Alina's palm. A younger Zara smiled from the faded picture, standing with her sister in Casablanca. She doesn't even know if I'm alive, Zara said softly. Promise me if I vanish, tell the world I existed. Alina clutched the photo as though it burned. Don't talk like that. But the very next week, Zara was gone. No goodbye, no warning. Her clothes still hung in the wardrobe. Her perfume lingered in the air, but her bed was stripped bare. Alina searched every hallway, begged every assistant, questioned the driver. Each answer was the same. Blank stares, murmured shrugs, silence waited with something darker. She called the agency office in desperation. A voice replied smoothly, "Zara has returned home. Her contract is closed." Yet her belongings still sat untouched. Her photograph remained in Alina's drawer, and the silence screamed louder than any official word. Alina's dream of glamour fractured completely that night. In its place grew the sharp edge of terror, cutting through every promise she had once believed. And then came the summons to a desert party, unlike anything she had ever imagined. The invitation arrived in a black envelope, its seal pressed in gold. No explanation, no refusal possible, just a time, a location, and the command, "Attend." The driver took her beyond the city lights, into the endless desert, where torches flickered like fallen stars against the dunes. Music throbbed from somewhere ahead, deep and insistent, pulling her closer like a heartbeat she could not escape. At the crest of a hill, the scene opened before her, tents of silk shimmering in firelight, carpets laid across the sand, trays of crystal glasses glittering under the moon. Dozens of guests moved in elaborate masks, gold, ivory, feathers, jewels. Men in flowing robes laughed too loudly. Women in sequined gowns swayed like mirages. A guard pressed a mask into Alina's hands. She slipped it over her face, its edges cold against her skin, hiding her trembling expression. Inside the largest tent, dancers writhed to the rhythm of drums, their movements hypnotic. Platters overflowed with food she could barely name, while champagne spilled like water. Yet beneath the spectacle something coiled, an unspoken rule that no one could refuse what was demanded. Rasheed appeared, his mask shaped like a falcon, his eyes unmistakable. He reached for Alina's hand, leading her through the throng as though presenting a prize. "You see," he murmured near her ear, "this is power. This is freedom. Tonight, no one remembers their chains." But Alina saw the truth in every glance, the way some women smiled too brightly, their eyes hollow behind sequins. The way guards lingered near the edges, ensuring no one strayed. The way silence fell whenever Rasheed passed, as though the air itself bowed to him. She tried to step back, but his grip tightened. "Smile," he ordered softly. "The world is watching." The music swelled, hiding the cry that caught in her throat. Later, outside the tent, she caught sight of a girl younger than herself. No more than 17, the girl's makeup streaked as tears blurred her face. She stumbled on the sand, her heel snapping, her arm grasped roughly by two guards. "Please," the girl begged in a language Alina didn't understand. Blood dripped from a cut on her knee, staining the hem of her dress. The guards dragged her toward a darkened tent beyond the lights. Alina froze, every instinct screaming to follow, to intervene, but Rasheed's hand rested on her shoulder, heavy and immovable. "Some are too weak for this life," he said calmly, his mask tilting as though the scene before them was nothing. "Do not let it trouble you." Her stomach turned. The laughter around her rose higher, drowning the sound of the girl's cries. That night, as the fires burned low and the masks began to slip away, Alina sat in silence, her glass untouched. Every face she looked at seemed complicit, every shadow heavy with secrets. She realized then that Zara's disappearance was not an accident. It was part of a pattern, one she was now trapped inside, and whispers of the missing would soon reach her ears. Days after the desert gathering, Alina found it impossible to silence the memory of the bleeding girl. Every time she closed her eyes she saw sand stained red, guards hauling her into darkness, Rasheed's indifferent gaze. She began asking quiet questions, careful not to let the driver hear. A makeup artist muttered under her breath, "You're better off not knowing." A stylist crossed herself and hurried away. Each reaction carried the same message. Silence was survival. But fragments leaked through in the most unlikely places. 2 photographers whispered while packing equipment. 4 gone already. Careful. Do you want to be next? The number stuck in Alina's chest. 4. That night she crept into the agency storage room under the excuse of searching for new wardrobe pieces. Dust coated the shelves, but in the corner sat a forgotten box marked with faded initials. Inside lay scattered belongings, heels, scarves, an old phone with a cracked screen, and beneath them, Zara's perfume bottle. Her breath caught. Zara had never gone home. She had been erased. Shoving the box closed, Alina fled, her hands trembling. The city outside buzzed with its usual opulence, fountains spraying, tourists laughing, yet she felt only the press of ghosts following her every step. Phone calls to her mother grew shorter still. "You sound strange, Alina," her mother said one evening. "I'm just tired, Mama," Alina whispered, forcing steadiness into her voice. She couldn't bring herself to say the truth, that if she spoke freely, the line might not remain safe. One afternoon, during a rooftop shoot, another model leaned close as the cameras reset. Her accent was thick, her voice barely audible. "They don't come back," she said. "Not one of them." Alina's throat tightened. "Who?" The woman's eyes darted to the guards standing nearby. Zara, and 3 others before her. Russia, Kenya, Brazil. They vanish, and the agency says they went home, but no one ever sees them again. Alina's skin prickled with cold. She wanted to demand proof, to shout her disbelief, but she had already seen Zara's perfume, heard the muffled sobs in the desert, watched the masks slip just enough to reveal the rot beneath. That night she sat at her window, staring at the endless glitter of Dubai's skyline. Each light felt like a silent witness to secrets buried in the sand. She whispered Zara's name under her breath, as if speaking it aloud might keep her friend alive somewhere. But in her heart, she knew. The pattern was clear. 4 gone, 4 silenced. And Rasheed's circle was at the center of it all. Sleep refused her. By dawn, her reflection in the glass looked pale, fractured, almost unrecognizable. She pressed her hands against the window as though she could push through it and escape into the freedom that shimmered just beyond reach. The next evening, a message arrived, summoning her again. Not to a party, not to a photo shoot, but to Rasheed himself. And this time, there would be no pretending. The summons came in a single line delivered by the driver. "Sheikh Rasheed requests you tonight." No excuse, no escape. Alina's hands shook as she dressed. Every gown felt like a costume, every jewel another chain. By the time she arrived at the palace, her throat was dry, her pulse frantic. The salon was quieter this time. No feasts, no dancers, only Rasheed seated in a carved chair as though on a throne. His eyes narrowed when she entered. "You've been asking questions," he said without greeting. Her stomach dropped. "I only wanted to—" "Curiosity," he interrupted smoothly, "is a dangerous luxury." He rose, walking slowly toward her. The air thickened with each step. "Do you think you are the first? Do you imagine no one has ever tried to resist?" His smile was soft, almost pitying. "They all learn the same lesson." Alina forced herself to speak, her voice barely steady. "Where is Zara?" Silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of air conditioning. Rasheed tilted his head, studying her as though weighing whether to tell her the truth or invent another lie. Finally he leaned close, his whisper sharp against her ear. "Some dreams end early, that is all you need to know." Her body stiffened, rage flashing beneath her fear. "You can't keep doing this." His laughter was low, effortless. "Can't." He gestured toward the marble walls, the guards standing silently at the door. "Look around you. There is no can't in my world. Only will." He stepped back, his expression cooling. "You have 2 choices, Alina. Obey and live as a star under my protection, or resist and vanish like the others." The threat sank deep, curling like ice in her veins. For a moment she imagined screaming, running, clawing at the locked doors. Instead she forced her hands to remain at her sides, nails biting into her palms. "Do you understand?" Rasheed asked. Her voice cracked. "Yes." He smiled, satisfied. "Good. Then tonight you stay. We will dine, and you will forget these foolish questions." The evening stretched endlessly, her plate untouched, her glass full. Rasheed spoke of new campaigns, of the luxury she owed to him, his words weaving a net around her. She answered when required, her mind drifting elsewhere, to Zara's perfume bottle, to the photograph hidden in her drawer, to the 4 women who had already vanished. When at last she was dismissed, Alina stepped into the night air, her chest heaving as if she had been drowning. The driver opened the car door, silent as always, but she caught the flicker of his gaze in the mirror, watchful, almost knowing. Back in her penthouse, she collapsed onto the bed, the glittering skyline pressing against her window. The city still looked magnificent, but to her it was a graveyard of illusions. She realized she could no longer trust hope. If she stayed silent, she would vanish like Zara. If she fought, she might die faster. Either way, the cage was closing. And before long, the world outside would hear only whispers of her end. The night she vanished began like any other. Alina stood at the window of her penthouse, watching the marina's waters glitter under neon lights. She thought of her mother's last message. "When will you visit home?" She hadn't answered. The truth was unanswerable. Her phone buzzed with a new schedule, a private dinner, no photographer, no campaign, just Rasheed. The driver was already waiting below. Alina packed quickly, not clothes, but Zara's photograph tucked deep into her purse. She wasn't sure if it was evidence or simply a reminder of the promise she had made. Either way, she carried it like a talisman. The palace loomed darker than usual, its corridors stripped of music, stripped of laughter. Guards escorted her into a room she had never seen before, bare walls, a single table, Rasheed seated in silence. He gestured to the chair opposite. "Sit." Her knees almost buckled, but she obeyed. "You've been restless," Rasheed said. "Disobedience breeds consequences." She forced her voice steady. "You can't hide forever. People will ask questions. They'll notice the women who vanish." Rasheed studied her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "People forget what does not profit them. Beauty fades, names disappear, and the city continues to shine." Her pulse thundered. For a heartbeat she imagined lunging across the table, screaming, clawing at his perfect composure. But the guard's shadows pressed against her skin like cold blades. Instead she whispered, "I won't be forgotten." The smile left his face. That was the last time anyone saw Alina. Days later, her penthouse stood empty. Her wardrobe intact, her shoes aligned, her perfume bottles glimmering untouched, but no trace of her remained. The agency released a statement claiming she had returned home to pursue new opportunities. Her photographs were erased from campaigns, her name scrubbed from every portfolio. Yet among the models, the whispers grew louder. Zara, the girl from Kenya, the one from Brazil. Now Alina. 4 crimes buried beneath gold and glass. 4 names traded like secrets in dressing rooms, murmured like prayers no one dared say aloud. The city glittered on, unbothered, indifferent. And the truth, like the women themselves, was locked away, silenced behind doors that would never open.